Uh-oh. We got action. We got action. So one of the guys that we thought might be holding out, and the 49ers had always been upfront about this, that something was going to get done with Bosa. I've always told you guys, deadline spur action, first day of the work week. The season is literally knocking on the door. It's time to stop playing games and get your best players on the field. Niners took care of business. Will the other teams, Kansas City and the Carolina Panthers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, follow suit? We will see. Anyway, this is going to be a spicy episode. Football is back. Yes. You are locked in to the LouieTeeNetwork podcast that starts now. The LouieTeeNetwork is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 361st installment of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Got a ton to talk about today. Football is back. Tomorrow we will be kicking off the 2023 NFL regular season. And there's some storylines heading into that game, boy. Whew. So we will preview that game later on in the show. I want to start today's show, however, talking about these NFL contracts and some of these players putting their foot down and demanding that they be paid. And, you know what? With that said, let's just jump straight into the gym dropping session for today. Why don't we do that? So let me drop this gym on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So, when the new CBA was reached and a deal was struck between the Players Association and the owners, I thought that we had seen the last of these types of situations. Generally, what we've seen since the new CBA is if you aren't under contract, meaning you were franchise tagged and you have yet to sign your franchise tag deal, those were the guys that held somewhat power, right? Some sort of leverage, but not really, because what are you going to do? Not play, right? That's really just not a feasible outcome to the situation. So the leverage that you have is, hey, I'm not showing up for camp. I'll be there right before the season starts, and then I'll sign your little funky franchise tag, right? And as we've seen this year, the leverage was used for these players to get a new deal where it was a one-year deal, right? So it was comparable to the franchise tag that they were already on. However, in most cases, a little bit more money, right? Slightly, incentivized there. But the real kicker was, hey, you can't franchise tag me again next year. I'm going to sign a new deal that includes a no franchise tag clause for next year. So there was a way of saying, hey, I stood up for myself. I did something to better my situation for the next year when I'm officially a free agent. With the new CBA, it was supposed to frown upon guys holding out because they wanted new deals while still being under a contract. But yet we've seen, and so the new thing was sit-ins. You're not holding out, you're not away from the team, but you're going to come in, but you're going to not participate. You're not going to practice. You're not going to do anything from a physical standpoint that may get you injured and jeopardize your new contract that you're looking to get, but you were still going to be accounted for, thus not be fined. Players just said, to hell with that shit. I'll eat the fines. I'm not afraid, but I need my bread. All right. And I'm not going out there without it. Zach Martin put his foot down. The Cowboys tried to talk tough. Jerry Jones tried to do that fake tough guy shit that he always does. And then his players generally call his bluff. We saw it with Ezekiel Elliott. We saw it with Dak Prescott. Now we saw it with Zach Martin. All of those guys got their money. So we saw Zach Martin do it earlier this summer. Now we really didn't talk about this because I just assumed things would get done. Players would show up and things would end up, getting solved. And that's what we just witnessed with the San Francisco 49ers. Nick Bosa hasn't participated in camp nor the preseason, waiting for his new deal. He's been away from the team. Unlike some of the sit-ins that we've heard about, he was away from the team. But the 49ers were confident, and they always were transparent about this situation. Hey, we're working towards a new deal. Something will get done. We want him here. You know, when these types of situations happen, the first thing that the Bleacher Reports of the world and ESPN wants to do is speculate about trade options. Could you swoop in and get, the 49ers made it abundantly clear. We're not trading him. We're going to get a deal done with him, right? So that's exactly what they did. And the deal just literally, as we started this podcast, the deal just came down. Nick Bosa becomes the highest paid defensive player in NFL history with a 5-year, $170 million deal, 122.5 of it fully guaranteed. Let me do the math on that guaranteed portion of the deal. So 170, 170 divided by 122.5. Let's see what we end up with here. That's got to be every bit of 70% of that deal, if not 75. Let's see what we got. 72% of that deal is fully guaranteed. My goodness. Shout out to Nick Bosa and his agent for strong arming the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I will say, if there's a guy in the league right now that deserves to have this kind of a bag tossed his way, it's Nick Bosa. You know, went out bald in his rookie season, got injured, came back from the injury, and 17 and a half sacks, whatever it was, whatever that number was, ridiculous number it was last year. The guy is damn near unblockable. And similar to TJ Watt, there's a massive difference between when he's in the lineup and when he's not in the lineup. He's a game wrecker. And those are the guys that you pay that kind of money to. And so he set the new standard. He set the new bar as an edge rusher getting paid in this league. We'll see what happens with guys looking to get paid moving forward. Again, if you're not on Nick Bosa's level, you will not exceed what he's being paid. It's just like when Aaron Donald reset the defensive tackle market. If you were a defensive tackle, if you're not Aaron Donald, you're not going to reset the defensive tackle market, right? If you're not looked upon as a guy with the similar skill set, you're not going to even approach that kind of money. I'm assuming that's what this deal is going to represent. It's going to be an outlier deal because there aren't many guys in the league walking around with the kind of impact that a Nick Bosa has. So you'll see other guys get paid. They won't be getting paid this kind of bread. You will have a few guys that have that kind of impact. And when it's their turn to get paid, they will get broken off. But that is substantial bread. And that's the kind of money that we heard was being discussed when it came to him, Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson. These are the contracts that are about to get done. These are the contracts that are going to reset the market and set that bar even higher. So I'm looking out for Jay Jetta's contract here shortly. Looking for Joe Burrow. Now, Burrow's may not be as extravagant because he's already made it abundantly clear he wants to keep the core group of guys around him. He wants T. Higgins to get paid in Cincinnati. He wants to keep his guy, Jamar Chase, in Cincinnati. He wants to keep the core of that football team together. And when you look to do that, sometimes as a quarterback, you may have to either take less or do what Patrick Mahomes did, take a massive deal over a long period of time that doesn't necessarily age well, because you can always come back to the table and redo it down the road. But for right now, it helps the team be able to maneuver and maybe keep some of those players that you would like to keep. So we'll see what happens with that. But Bosa wasn't interested in that. He was looking to get to the bag, and that he did. So he's now going to be back with the 49ers as they hit the field week 1 against what I think is going to be a stiff opponent in the Pittsburgh Steelers. That will be one of the best games, I think, of week number 1. And of course, we'll discuss all of those games in greater detail on Friday's episode of the Louie T Network podcast. But let's talk about some of the other guys that we're currently holding out as we speak. A big deal right now is Chris Jones in Kansas City, because unlike a guy like Mike Evans, who isn't necessarily going to hold out, playing the last year of his deal in Tampa, but he's given the Buccaneers an ultimatum. We'll talk about that in a second. Chris Jones has a game tomorrow, okay? And the thing that I've realized with the Kansas City Chiefs is you're not going to strong arm the Kansas City Chiefs into doing something that they don't want to do. And they have already proven that with the Tyreek Hill situation. They looked at Tyreek Hill. They said, hey, man, we got a number in mind. I think this number is going to make you happy and make you smile. They slid that number across the table. Tyreek Hill was like, you're right. This is going to make me smile. And then soon as they thought they were making headway, Devontae Adams got that crazy deal from the Raiders, and Tyreek Hill looked down at the deal again, and he was like, hey, the number just changed. Yeah, this is yesterday's price. Yesterday's price is not today's price, and he slid the number back across the table, and, the Chiefs was like, look, this is the best we got. And he was like, well, that ain't good enough, so you might want to start making preparations for life after Tyreek Hill. And they said, well, if you can't figure out something that's going to make sense for both sides, hey, we won't mind trading you. Find a trade partner, and we'll make something happen. The rest is history. So they've already set a precedence with not overpaying guys when it comes to contract negotiations. Chris Jones is already being paid handsomely in the Chiefs' mind, and the number he's probably looking at is probably one that the Chiefs are like, come on, bro, stall us out, man. And he's already said, look, I just want a raise. I'm not looking to bust you over the head. I just want a raise. And the Chiefs are like, that's exactly what this raise is going to represent. You busting us over the head. So he could miss week 1. Now, keep in mind, this Travis Kelce injury, this hyperextension of his knee, has complicated matters. If there's no Chris Jones on the defensive side of the football, and there's no Travis Kelce on the offensive side of the football, the Detroit Lions could sneak into Arrowhead week 1 and upset the Kansas City Chiefs. It's not out of the realm of possibility. This is crazy. And so the Chiefs have to make a decision, and Andy Reid has pretty much put his foot down like, he's not here. I want to talk about the players that are here. So they've taken a hardline stance with Chris Jones, and Chris Jones is like, I'm not going to be around the team. I don't think it's fair to them because I can play. I'm ready to go right now, just looking for my increase, my pay increase. So that's a situation that has a chance to get really murky in Kansas City. Brian Burns, look, and here's the difference between the three situations. The San Francisco 49ers are a Super Bowl contender. The Kansas City Chiefs are the defending Super Bowl champions, so we know they're Super Bowl contenders. The Carolina Panthers are not, okay? And so while they want to get something done, it's not necessarily urgent, emergency. It's not as urgent because who the hell you beating anyway, right? Still, I've always talked about this when you're dealing with players in a locker room, especially if you're the Carolina Panthers in particular. There needs to be a precedence set where you take care of players who have done it the right way, who have played at an extremely high level. You take care of those guys to set an example for the rest of the guys in the locker room that, hey, if you do it the right way, you do it the way we ask you to do it, we're going to compensate you handsomely and reward you to stay here because you did the things we asked you to do and you played at a tremendous level. So we're going to take care of you here. When that doesn't happen in a locker room, it sets a bad example and a bad precedence. And what it does is it doesn't encourage guys to perform at the highest levels that they can for you, right? And I know that sounds crazy and counterintuitive and counterproductive because if you're looking to get paid in the NFL, it really doesn't matter what's happening within your own locker room. You still got to put good film out there because if you don't, no one's going to give you the bag that you're looking for in the first place. But it's an extra added incentive to guys in the locker room. And I always use teams and situations that I'm a lot more familiar with as a Washington Commanders fan. You look at what they've done the last 3 years. They took care of Jonathan Allen. They took care of Terry McLaurin. Then they took care of Daron Payne. That shows the other guys in the locker room. These were all guys drafted by this organization, all guys that do it the right way, all guys that came and showed up to work every day, hard hat, lunch pail, got it done. In the case of Daron Payne, unlike Terry McLaurin and Jonathan Allen before him, those guys got the deal going into their last year. He didn't get the deal going into his last season. he had to wait until after that season. They threw the franchise tag. They asked him to prove it. They didn't ask Terry McLaurin to prove it. They didn't ask Jonathan Allen to prove it. Those guys had already proven it. So they gave them the bag before they went into their final season, whereas he didn't get the bag until after that season. He had to prove it to them, but he still got to the bag. And so it shows the players in the locker room, if you do it the right way, you will be rewarded here and compensated for your hard work. And so if you're Carolina, you're trying to build a culture, got a brand new head coach. Your GM has been there, 3 years now. You're trying to build a culture, instill into that locker room with the other players. Hey, these are the kind of guys that we want here. These are the building blocks. You take care of business. This is what happens when you take care of business here the right way. That's what they need to kind of instill in that locker room if you're building that culture with Brian Burns. You saw the numbers, right? Burns is looking for $28 million annual, value, AAV, right? So they're probably saying, whoa, wait a minute. You're looking for what? How much now? I mean, how much is the Bosa deal? So 5 for 170. It's really more 5 of 122, but we'll go 5 for 170 because that's what agents do. So let's take a look at. We already know 5 and 150 is 30, right? So we already know that. So it's over 30. It's probably 35. I'd guess 35 million. No, because that would add. Let's see. Yeah, 35. I'm thinking that's 35. Let's just do the math here. 170 divided by 5 is probably 35. Not times, divide. Divided by 5 is 34. So 34 per, right? AAV for Bosa's deal that he just signed is $34 million per year. Burns is looking for 27 or 28. So let's say 5 years and let's say 27 million per would put you at 135. And if you take 72% of that, which is what Bosa just got, let's see. If you take 72% of 135, you will get $97.2 million fully guaranteed. So that's probably the neighborhood of what he's looking for right now, something to that effect. Will the Carolina Panthers oblige? At this point, I don't know if they really have a choice. I mean, he's the best defensive player that you have. So we'll see what happens there. That's a really interesting dynamic in Carolina because, as I just mentioned, unlike the other two situations that I just mentioned with Super Bowl contending teams, the Panthers aren't winning anything of note this season. So it's more about establishing a culture and keeping one of the best players at his respective position in the league happy on your team. And they've gotten offers for him. They've gotten offers where teams offered up multiple first-round picks, and they told them flat out, no, we're not trading him. So if you're going to take that hardline stance, then you need to pay him. I mean, what are we talking about here, right? So we'll see what happens with that situation. I always contend that deadline spur action. Now, the Chiefs of all these situations is the one that I don't think is going to get done. Like there's going to have to be some kind of a meeting of the minds, and they're going to have to agree on something that really makes Chris Jones feel like he got, what he was looking for out of the deal other than just money. Maybe it's, some sort of guarantee that they won't do this or they won't do that, or, upfront, they give him a ton of upfront money, not necessarily more money, but more of it upfront. There's got to be a way that they can figure out a way to make him happy. Because they need Chris Jones. Their defense doesn't exist without him. It's just that simple. Without him in the middle of that defense, the Chiefs' defense ceases to exist. They don't really have any true difference makers off the edge. The secondary is okay, but he's the one guy that you can count on to get pressure, to collapse pockets, to be a game wrecker. You take him off their defense, and now they're going to have to outscore teams. So, and he knows his value. He knows the impact that he has on that defense, which is why he can pull a stunt like this and potentially get away with it. So we'll see what happens with Kansas City. I know that they have drawn a line in the sand before, and I think they're capable of doing it again. And they have Patrick Mahomes, and they probably think in their mind, no one man outside of Patrick Mahomes is bigger than the team. We'll be fine without you, but they know they need Chris Jones. And if they go out, they play without him, and the Lions roll up 37 points and they lose that game, he'll get what he's asking for. So we'll see what happens with that situation. I want to talk about a situation that I don't think is getting enough attention, though, and that's Mike Evans in Tampa Bay. So if you guys remember, I was talking about the preseason week number 3, and Baker Mayfield played, and obviously he's the starter in Tampa, and Chris Godwin played in that game. And I was like, why didn't Mike Evans play? I said, well, at least he's got Chris Godwin out there. And Godwin caught a touchdown. They got out after that. And I didn't know, though, that Mike Evans wanted a new deal. He was in the last year of his current contract. He wanted a new deal. And that's why he hasn't been practicing. That's why he hasn't participated in the preseason with the Buccaneers. And or I think he's been practicing. I don't think he's actually holding out. I just think his agent has made it abundantly clear to the team that if something isn't reached by Saturday, we're not talking to you after during the season. And after the season is done, we really don't want to hear from you at that point. We want to hit free agency, which they don't control anything, because unless they already have a clause in the contract that states they can't franchise tag him, which I doubt. Most people don't put that in their contract until after they've been franchise tagged once. So unless that's already in his deal, I highly doubt that that's already in there, and that the Bucs won't franchise tag him if they don't want to lose him. If they feel like Evans is still playing at a very high level, because he's an integral part of their team, obviously, a big part of their community. He's been there his entire career. Evans has to be going on year 8 or 9, and he's been outstanding for just about every single year of his career. And if they want him to finish as a Buck, then they could slap the franchise tag on him. He's made it clear that our relationship could be fractured and to the point where it becomes severed, and where we cannot repair the relationship. It becomes irreparable at a potential point if we don't get something done by Saturday. So his isn't a holdout. It's more of a, if you don't ... then this is what's going to happen. It's almost like an ultimatum. Let's get a deal done by Saturday, or I don't want to play here after this year. So again, I think that's pretty important if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I don't know how they feel about Mike Evans at this stage of his career. I don't know what Mike Evans is asking for. A lot of questions, not a ton of answers, but I do know this: Evans and his agent sound pretty serious about not re-signing with Tampa Bay if this. And again, when you're in negotiations, it's all about posturing. You got to sound firm and resolute in your stance. Otherwise, the other side isn't going to believe you, and therefore you're not going to get what you're asking for. You have to put your foot down, and you have to draw a line in the sand, and you got to make them respect the fact that you're not playing around, right? Zach Martin did that with the Cowboys when he failed to show up and was willing to eat fines. The Cowboys know they can't survive without Zach Martin on that offensive line. Are you kidding me? They know. And Jerry Jones can play hardball all he wants and talk about how he's got money allocated for this player and that player and this player and that player. But Zach's like, I don't want to hear that shit. I got guys that aren't even on my level. I'm a future Hall of Famer. I got guys that aren't even on my level getting more bread than me. Are you kidding me? Ante up. And you can talk that shit about, well, you got money allocated for CeeDee Lamb. You got money allocated for Michael Parsons and all these other players. I ain't trying to hear that shit. Trayvon Diggs, that's cool. Give me my damn money. Stop playing with me. And I'll eat these fines. I eat these fines because I know on the other side of that is the bread that I'm trying to get to. And that's going to be more delicious than any of these fines that you're trying to throw at me. I'm fine. My stomach can handle it. So these players are standing up. I'm actually happy for them standing up for what they believe is right and fair for them, because the owners don't hesitate to get rid of a dude when they don't see the value in holding on to a player, or even if that player is playing well, but they feel like that player is making too much money, i.e. Dalvin Cook, i.e. DeAndre Hopkins in Arizona. They just get rid of dudes, right? Doesn't make a ton of sense. They just move on from a guy. So get your bread, man. You know how I feel. I'm always going to be on the side of the players when I feel like that player has earned the right to put himself in a position to try to get as much of the money and get to the bag as much as he can. So these are all interesting situations. And then obviously on the back burner, you got Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson who look to reset their respective markets. But those guys aren't disgruntled. Their money will come eventually. And you could hear something being done with those two in the next day or two. You know, I think those deals are imminent. So really interesting times around the National Football League. My goodness. So let's get to our next segment, and that would be social media maneuvers. Y'all know what it is. I'm a midday marauder. Couple of topics that I want to talk about real quick. So we talked about quarterback, the series on Netflix, and how that first season was awesome, right? Marcus Mariota, Kirk Cousins, Patrick Mahomes allowed cameras to essentially follow them everywhere in the facility, at home, going to Barnes and Nobles, you name it, they did it. And it was sort of a behind the curtain, not a behind the scenes. This was even more intimate than that. This was pulling back the curtain entirely. And it was a reality show is what it was. Let's call it what it was. It was a 5-month reality television show that they condensed into 8 episodes. I believe it was 8 episodes. So it was great theater, made for television. Most of us thoroughly enjoyed it. Netflix enjoyed a huge bump from that series. It was number 1 on Netflix for like 3 weeks, which is unheard of because Netflix has, content updated daily. And so generally you'll get to number 1 for 4 or 5 days, and then somebody will come knock you off. Quarterback was number 1 for like 2 or 3 weeks straight. So they immediately read up with Peyton Manning and said, yeah, we want more of this. And Manning just figured he'd be able to deliver. Like, yeah, I'll be able to get 3 more quarterbacks to come on the show. And slowly but surely, he went through the list of guys that he thought would be really interesting, that fans would want to see what it's like to, be Jalen Hurts or Justin Fields or, Justin Herbert. And these guys are like, nah, I'm really focused on my craft. Like, I get it for someone like Justin Fields. Like, this is a make or break season for you. The last thing you need to do is have cameras following you around at the facility, at home, and kind of making a spectacle of a season that your job is essentially on the line. Like, I don't want to be over dramatic with Justin Fields, but they invested a lot around him this year and they gave up the number 1 pick. Not to say that any of the guys in the draft were necessarily like blow you away number 1 overall quarterback guys. I'm a Bryce Young fan. I think he's going to ultimately be really good in this league, but it's not like it's Caleb Williams that they passed on to keep Justin Fields. But again, they passed on the number 1 overall selection, which would have been a quarterback if they wanted to take one and to say that we believe in you. And they got him DJ Moore. They went out and they spent resources to really put him in a position. They got an offensive lineman. They went out and they did the things that they needed to do to really build this offense and give him a fighting chance. And they're looking for him to prove that he's the right man for the job. And I think it would be irresponsible on his part to allow that distraction to come in and maybe play a part. Because I know if he doesn't work out this year, the last thing you want to be able to point to is say, hey, this guy had the audacity to have cameras following him around for a Netflix series. That's the first thing everybody would point to. So I get it for a guy like Justin Fields, but if you're a veteran quarterback, you're established. I mean, and again, like, not everybody wants that limelight. Not everybody wants cameras in their home, wants everybody to know what their personal life is like. Not everybody wants that, right? Like Patrick Mahomes, his wife probably wanted that. She's very active on social media. they didn't really feature his dumb brother because he was getting into trouble, which had he been clean, they probably would have been featuring his brother, and that would have helped his social media status because he's an influencer, but he's a dumbass. So they kind of kept him out of the limelight of the show intentionally. But Brittany Mahomes, this is great for her profile, right? It gave everyone a different look at her, because I know my wife, she's like, I can't stand her. And after watching it, she softened her stance a little bit. She still isn't a big fan of Brittany Mahomes, but she softened her stance a little bit, right? So it can change the perception. I think Kirk Cousins, that's the reason he did it, because, I think a lot of people don't give him the credit that he deserves. And I think people think he's just this square religious kid, that, can't relate to his teammates and things of that nature. And so he wanted to show, like, I'm just one of the guys. I might be corny and goofy, but that's me. And they respond to that. So I think some people had a different, approach to Kirk Cousins after watching that show. If you're Marcus Mariota, what the hell do you have to lose? You're Marcus Mariota, right? Any publicity is good publicity for you at this point of your career. So I just thought they'd be able to, and I'm pretty sure Peyton thought they'd be able to find 3 guys. And Justin Herbert, that's not his personality. I don't know him. I can't say that with 100% certainty. I can't confirm nor deny that, but my gut tells me that's just not his personality. He doesn't want cameras following him around. That's not who he is. He's an introvert. So, which Marcus Mariota is too, but they're at different points of their career, and Justin Herbert's on his way to superstardom. Marcus Mariota is just trying to hang on in the league at this point of his career. So they're 2 different, points of their careers, 2 different dudes, same type of personality. Generally, a guy like Mariota wouldn't do a show like that. And I don't think Herbert is interested. I thought a guy like Joe Burrow would be fascinated, and I thought he'd take the Patrick Mahomes slot and gladly do it because Burrow's so outgoing. He's an extrovert. I just thought that fit him naturally. I thought somebody that they could look at, and they tried Justin Fields to kind of fill, that the lower tier role. But I thought, a guy like, and they tried already with Jalen Hurts, he would have been perfect for the Kirk Cousins role, that second tier, guy that you're really intrigued by, want to see more of. Hell, he could have even been elevated if they couldn't get one of those other quarterbacks. He could have been elevated to the top tier and filled that Patrick Mahomes void, because he was literally runner-up in league MVP last year. So the narrative on him has switched and done a total 180. He could have easily been thrusted into that top spot on the show and been, the headliner. But he said, no, I'm good. I'm going to pass on that. And again, I think that's more of his personality. I'm a hard hat, lunch pail, go to work, rents due type of guy. Really don't want cameras following me around. I'm trying to get back to the Super Bowl and win it. And I don't want the distraction. And that's what everybody is pretty much saying, is I don't want the distraction. And you know what Peyton has to do? Is he just needs to take a step back and look at it from this lens. And he probably understands this. When he was a quarterback, would he have wanted cameras following him around at all times, at home, at the facility, at the grocery store, at the bookstore? Would he have wanted that? Hell no. The answer is no. He wouldn't have done that. His brother wouldn't have done that. And so it's tough, because you can't put scrubs on this thing. Right? You can't just put random Joe Schmoes. Like, nobody wants to see Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston, although Jameis might be very entertaining. These dudes aren't even starting, right? Can't just put anybody. It's got to be a starting quarterback, and it can't be 3 low-level starting quarterbacks. Peyton has already said, he said, I hate to be cliche, but we're in the 2-minute drill now. Like, we're in the final 2 minutes of this thing, because obviously the season's about to start, and you're supposed to be following these guys around from the start of the season all the way to the finish. So if you don't have 3 guys, maybe they got 1, maybe they got 2, they don't have a third. If they don't have 3 guys by the start of week 1, they're screwed. They're screwed. So, yeah, might not get quarterback season 2 this year. I said all of that to say that a show that most of us enjoyed thoroughly may not get it back for a season 2. We'll see what happens there. But anyway, I digress. Y'all know how this works. If you don't, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent. We got so much to discuss. I can't wait to break down this week 1 matchup because, I mean, there are a lot of storylines. I talked about Chris Jones already. I barely glossed over the Travis Kelce hyperextension, but that's a big effing deal. The Lions are hungry. A lot of people have picked the Lions to be, NFC darlings this year. And we saw how they finished the season last year. And I'm not a huge proponent of things carrying over from one season to the next. I look at each and every single NFL season as its own individual entity. Can you carry over some momentum? Sure. Like, there's good vibes and great feelings about what you were able to do last year. I think more so the experience gained is invaluable when you have a team that you're building and this core nucleus of guys that you have. When they get to play together and they see results and they start to buy in, I think those are things that you carry over. But winning in week 18 at Green Bay, Lambeau Field, eliminating the Green Bay Packers and finishing on a high note is cool, but I don't know if that necessarily moves the needle, in terms of week 1. Like, the Chiefs don't give a damn that they finished the season hot last year. It's a brand new season. So we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. But if you're out there, you want your comment read, use the hashtag LouieTeeLive to have that done. Obviously, if you want to jump straight to the front of the line, super chats are the way to get that done. And so let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. So got a couple of supers. I'll knock those out. And then if there's some comments, we'll read some of those. And then we'll get to garbage time and our preview for Thursday night football. So got a super chat here from Rosario Satara Poleski. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Rosario Satara Poleski writes, the NFC East Super Friends channel launch was a great success. First show did great, exciting. Thank you for that, Russ. And that allows me to put in a shameless plug for the NFC East Super Friends channel that we have started. It, like you said, was a great success. We're almost at 5,000 subscribers already. We just started this channel a week ago. It's already almost at 5,000 subscribers. So shout out to everyone who subbed up the channel and made this launch a great success. We ask for your continued support. The video that we just did, already over 35,000 views. So you guys are eating it up. We really appreciate all that you've done to help that channel kind of grow at the rate that it has to this point. And we can't thank you enough. And again, that's part of the reason why we started the channel, is because there's such a yearning for that content. And we're so happy that you guys enjoy it. So thank you for that super chat, Rosario Satara Poleski. And thank you to all of you who have made the NFC East Super Friends launch and brand what it has become. And we ask that you continue to support us as we continue to try to do bigger and better things for you guys. So Kyle, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Kyle writes, football is back, Lou. Yes, it is, man. Back like cook crack. Boy, I missed it. And college football took a little bit of the edge off. I was fiended up this past weekend. I'm talking about I got 2 monitors on. I'm watching 4 or 5 different games at once. So I kind of got that energy back, but it's nothing like the NFL, man. Nothing like the National Football League. So best of luck to Washington this year. Same for your Minnesota Vikings, Kyle. So see if we got any other comments in here. If we don't, then we will move on and get to the preview for Thursday night's game, which is going to be a doozy. So no other comments. Let's get to our final segment of the show and garbage time. So Thursday night football is a hell of a contest between the young upstart Detroit Lions and the Super Bowl defending Kansas City Chiefs. They have a new offensive coordinator in Matt Nagy. They have Chris Jones holding out right now. They have Travis Kelce dealing with a hyperextended knee that he suffered at practice yesterday, or was it the day before? I think it might have been Monday he suffered that injury. And obviously that's a cause for concern. They don't think there's any structural damage, but they play on Thursday, so I think he's going to play. I don't know how effective he's ultimately going to be, but I think he's going to give it a go. I don't know if he finishes the game, but I think he's going to start it. But when you look at this football game and you look at Kansas City and what they represent, it's tough to go into Arrowhead, specifically on banner night, where they're going to drop the banner, kind of bring back the warm and fuzzies of hoisting the Lombardi just a mere 6 months ago. But the Detroit Lions don't give a shit. They don't care about any of that. They're a battle-tested team. They showed that last year when they went into Lambeau Week 18 with the Packers having everything to play for, with a spot in the playoffs on the line. They went into Lambeau, pulled out all the stops, and defeated Aaron Rodgers in his last game as a Packer and sent the Packers home packing. So they don't mind going into a hostile environment. With the way that they play, they're a physical football team. They want to run the football. They want to take care of it. Jared Goff knows how to take care of the football. He's one of the best game managers in the NFL right now. And so I wouldn't be shocked. You know what this feels like? I'm going to be honest with you. I think the Chiefs are on upset alert with all the distractions going on, with Chris Jones holding out, with Kelce now dealing with an injury. You know what this feels like? This feels eerily similar to when the Patriots lost to the Chiefs in 16? I believe it was 16. What year was that when they beat the I want to say they beat the Rams in the Super Bowl? That had to be 18. They beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. And then the next year, no, because Alex Smith was gone already. I think Alex Smith's last year in Kansas City was 2017. They traded him to Washington in 2018. So when was the Super Bowl when they won, and then Kansas City came to Foxborough in week 1 on banner night and put up 41 points or whatever it was and beat them? This feels like that. Whatever it was Alex Smith, it was Tyreek Hill, it was Travis Kelce, and it had to be 2017. It had to be 2017 because Mahomes was a rookie, and so was Kareem Hunt. And Hunt came in as a rookie, first game of his career. I remember he hadn't fumbled at all in his collegiate career at Toledo, fumbled like on his first touch in the NFL, and then proceeded to torch the Patriots that night, catching the football, running it. And he kind of put himself on the map from that point forward. So this feels like that. The Chiefs weren't afraid of the Patriots then. And I don't think the Lions are afraid of the Chiefs now. And if they're not careful now, again, Mahomes is dangerous. They got weapons. It's like, don't count them out. Like this, it's not over, even if Kelce doesn't play. But it gets a lot more complicated if he doesn't play and if he can't be effective. I mean, him just being on the field as a decoy isn't good enough. He's got to be Travis Kelce, and I don't know if he's going to be able to do that, dealing with the type of injury that he just sustained a mere 2-3 days ago. So that game's going to be fascinating, because if Chris Jones doesn't play, you should be able to run the football on the Kansas City Chiefs. You should have all day to throw the football against the Kansas City Chiefs. And now you're relying on a secondary that's always been somewhat shaky in Kansas City to hold it down and, get you stops, maybe create a turnover or two. And you know what the Lions want to do. They want to establish the run. On the Lions side of things, I think they're going to miss Jamal Williams. I think they're going to miss his leadership, his physicality, his toughness. Obviously, we saw what he did in the red zone as, a guy that could get the ball into the end zone, led the NFL in rushing touchdowns a season ago. I think they're going to miss him. David Montgomery is a nice replacement, but he's got to stay healthy. But I love him as a running back in this league when healthy. We're going to see what Detroit, is able to do. They've had their fair share of distractions this offseason, suspending a few of their players due to gambling issues, one of them being their first-round pick from a season ago who they were excited to get back finally in Jameson Williams. So they've dealt with some distractions themselves. Amon-Ra St. Brown was dealing with a little bit of an injury in camp, and so they've got some things going on themselves, but when it's all said and done, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to play. He's going to be healthy enough to go in week 1. They're not going to be scared of going into Kansas City and trying to upset the Chiefs. It's always tough when you go into a hostile environment like that, especially on banner night. I think we've only seen 1 or 2 teams do it. I just told you the Chiefs did it to the Patriots, I think, after the 16 Super Bowl in 2017. And I want to say the Giants did it to Dallas. Not Dallas. Somebody did it to the Giants, rather, after they won. I want to say it was the 2011 Super Bowl that they won. In 2012. I think they lost that first game. I think Ahmad Bradshaw fumbled like 3 times in that game. I could be making up shit. But I think the Giants lost 1 year, and I think the Patriots lost 1 year. And that's it. I don't think we've seen many teams. I don't know. I feel like, and I don't know. I don't think, because the Steelers haven't won a Super Bowl in such a long time. I feel like the Steelers might have lost one time, but I don't think they did. But it doesn't have. I said all of that to say this. I think they've been doing this Thursday night. Super Bowl winner hosts, the first game of the season. I think they've done it they've been doing it for almost 20 years now. And you might have had 4. You might have had a handful of teams lose, 4 or 5. I think 1 year the Ravens won it in 2012, and then they couldn't play their first game of the season, that Thursday night game, at home because of a scheduling conflict with the Baltimore Orioles, I think. And I think they ended up playing that game in Denver that next year in 2013. That was the first year of Peyton Manning, if I'm not mistaken, with the Denver Broncos, and they got their asses run. Something to that effect. I think, I could be making up stuff. But I think I remember something like that. So, like I said, 5 max. I think 4 is the number that I would go with. I think the Lions could add their name to that list. It's very plausible with all of the shit that's going on with Kansas City right now. They could be in a little bit of trouble to start this season off. Never doubt the Kansas City Chiefs and the heart of a champion. And these guys have been resilient during this entire Patrick Mahomes run. And until they show me that they're not resilient, I'm just going to assume that they are. I told you from the jump, I wasn't buying the Detroit Lions this year. So I'm just going to assume that the Chiefs are going to take care of business until they don't. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Lions went in there and beat them. Right? So anyway, Bills last year. Bills, thank you, Mickey, or Mick, who says the Bills did it to the Rams last year. That one almost didn't feel like it should have counted. Like, the Rams were set up to get slaughtered on their own field last year. Nobody picked the Rams to win that game, but that did happen. And that year that I'm talking about, he said the Cowboys won that game. Yeah, the Cowboys beat the Giants that year. Yeah, that's what it was. So that's why I said the Cowboys, because remember I was like, it wasn't the Cowboys. They didn't win the Super Bowl, but they were the opponent that night. Because I don't know if they were all that good themselves. I don't think they were trash, but they weren't great. But I think they beat the Giants that night. So, Lions are going to be tough in this particular game. We'll see, what they're able to do, if they're able to take advantage of no Chris Jones. If that comes to fruition, the Chiefs still have time to get something done. If they don't have Travis Kelce, we'll see if those things come to fruition. Will the Lions be able to take advantage of those opportunities? Because again, if they got both of those players, we're not having this conversation. I don't think the Lions stand a chance. With those guys out, we're talking about outside of Patrick Mahomes, take Mahomes out of the equation. You're talking about the Chiefs' two best players on those respective sides of the football, right? We know Mahomes is the best player on that team, period, and the best player in the league, period. But you move him aside, the best player on offense is Travis Kelce, not named Patrick Mahomes. And the best player, I think the second best player on the team is Chris Jones after Mahomes. If he's not the second best player, if you think that's Travis Kelce, fine. He's the second most important player then, because they can win this game. Even without both of those guys, they can win this game. I won't count out Kansas City. But they can win this game without Kelce. Like, I still would be confident if they had Chris Jones and no Kelce. I would be confident. No Chris Jones means they're very, very vulnerable on the defensive side of the football. He means that much, similar to what I just talked about with Nick Bosa and why the 49ers paid him all that money. Look at the TJ Watt effect in Pittsburgh. Like, they don't win without TJ Watt. He has that much of an impact. Same thing can be said for Chris Jones. He has a massive impact on that Chiefs defense. So we'll see what happens, but I digress. I'm going to go ahead and make my prediction, though. I think this game is going to be close. The last time the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, we got a rainy, ugly, sloppy game against the Texans, and they beat them up. That was Clyde Edwards-Helaire's coming out party, his first game as a pro, and he was the star of that game. I think they gave it to him like 28 times or whatever. He ran for like 140 yards or, something to that effect. And the Texans were playing two deep safeties, making Mahomes check it down. And that would be the theme of that season, if you recall. Teams just came out playing two deep safeties and forcing Mahomes to check it down. And he wasn't really adept at that moment. He hadn't gotten the grasp of taking what the defense was giving him, so he struggled with it a little bit. He's now adjusted to that. So I think this game is going to be a lot different from that game, because I think the Lions are capable. In teams, let's talk about this for a second. Teams like Detroit give Kansas City problems. Like, to me, the Detroit Lions are similar in their approach to that of the Tennessee Titans. Similar coaches with that juice and intensity, former players, right? Caretaker, game manager quarterbacks of the highest level. Ryan Tannehill and Jared Goff are very comparable as quarterbacks. They don't make a ton of mistakes. Usually they take care of the football. They manage the game well, a very accurate short to intermediate. They don't usually take a lot of shots down the field, can control the game with the run and have everything kind of set up off of that, or the short passing game. The similarities between the two teams are eerie. Obviously, Tennessee has Derrick Henry. The Lions don't, but that doesn't stop the Lions from trying to be physical and imposing their will on you with the run game. And so the Titans, remember, if you recall, last year went in the Arrowhead on a Sunday night and gave the Chiefs everything that they could handle with Malik Willis starting that game, right? If they had Ryan Tannehill, they would have beaten the Chiefs that night. So I look at it in a very similar light, like, hey, that's a very similar team in Detroit, similar principles. If the Chiefs aren't on their best behavior, they could be upset in this game. I'm just saying, but until they are, my money's on the defending Super Bowl champions. Give me the Chiefs in a very, very close and competitive ball game, 27-23. The Lions have the football late with a chance to win, and the Chiefs hold the hell on for dear life and are able to preserve the victory, 27-23. Anyway, I digress. So let's get out of here. I'll just read this comment real quick on the way out. So HHC Lunar says, what do you think about the TCU player saying losing to Colorado made them the laughingstock of college football? I read that entire article. It was great. That guy was really, so he came from the Naval Academy. So you already know there's a level of discipline that he is just equipped with internally, that he just comes with. And he held himself and the rest of that defense accountable. And I think what he was really trying to convey was, it's not our defensive coordinator's fault. Everybody wants to point at him and say that he's a disaster and he's the reason that we got our asses kicked against Georgia and lost by 60 in the national championship game. And now we give up, 40 whatever points to Colorado and on a game that was on a national stage essentially and looked like garbage. And he's pretty much like, look, don't put that on my D coordinator. He put us in the right positions. He told us what they were going to do, and we just didn't go out and execute. And the effort wasn't good enough. We missed a bunch of tackles. We played like garbage, and that's on us as players, not on our coaches. He's saying, what I'm not going to do is allow people to point the finger at our defensive coordinator as if he didn't do his job, like he's some kind of chump, because he put us in the positions. He told us what they were going to do, and we just didn't do anything about it. But that, what that sounded like he was describing? Big 12 defense. That's all it sounded like he was describing, was what we've watched from Oklahoma for the last 15, 20 years, what we watched from usually Oklahoma State, what we've watched from this same TCU team. Like, this is what they do. They generally don't play. Some years, TCU's defense is really good. I'm not going to sit here and make it seem like every year TCU's defense is ass. But you play in the Big 12, generally, you're going to have to win shootouts. You're not going to be winning defensive struggles. You'll see it every now and again. But generally speaking, that's not the case. So he said, as long as I'm here, you won't see that kind of performance. And I'm assuming he got into his teammates' ass. Pause. Because he said that the effort wasn't good enough. And as long as I'm here and I'm on this team, you won't see that again. So I'm pretty sure he went off. He went slam off on his teammates. If he's going to say that in the media, then that means he said everything that he said to the media to his teammates already. So anyway, we'll see what happens. I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Bat like cook crack. The season is upon us. The next time you see me here on the LouieTeeNetwork podcast, we'll be talking about Thursday night football, the outcome of that game. We'll have some Thursday night leftovers, and we will be running down the week 1 slate. Oh my God, that is going to feel so good. In any event, if you haven't already done so, last reminder, LTN exclusives still open. They close tomorrow at 6 p. So you still have time. All of the links that you need are in the description of this video, including the video that shows you how you can play and where you can find all of the resources that you need. So again, all of those links have been placed in the description of this video. You have until tomorrow evening at 6 p. to get in. So there's still time. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment in this video. You can hit me up via email, LouieTeeNetwork@gmail.com. If you want in, you still have time. Also, I got a couple of people, if you're out there, that you can hit me up with, because I had a couple of people that sent me money, but I don't know who you are. Like, you didn't specify who you are, so I don't really know who to credit this. So if you haven't seen your name, and again, if you send me money, you have to register. You have to go and fill out the form to register so that I know where I can apply the money to. So I'm sitting on $25 from this one guy, and I don't know how to apply this $25. And if he doesn't come forward and say something, if I can't figure out, I'm gonna have to send him back his money, right? Like, if you sign up, send the $20. Don't just send me $20 and don't say anything, right? Now I think it's a donation. I know it's not a donation because $20 or $25 is a specific total. and you're sending it for a reason, but tell me why you're sending it. Hey, this is for fill in the blank on, in the survivor pool, or this is for fill in the blank winners and losers, so that I know. And if you fill out registration and your names match up, this is what happens when you got 50 different aliases and you sign up under this name and then you send me money and then it's a different name. How the hell am I supposed to know that the two are the same, right? So again, make it make sense. Streamline it for me. Fill out the registration form. Use the same email and username as, and if you're sending it on PayPal or Cash App, say this is for fill in the blank that you used in the registration, right? So I know, again, make it easy on me. Think smarter, work smarter, not harder, right? Anyway, still time if you want in. I appreciate all y'all, man. This is going to be the biggest year yet. I think both of these pools, when it's all said and done, league and pool, will be over $1,000. Both of them. Last year, the survivor pool was like $400 and something. I think it's going to eclipse $1,000 this year. So again, that's all you guys. So still time to get in. $20 gets you in the survivor pool. 25 gets you in winners and losers. So with that said, I'm going to glide to the side, get out of here, and allow you guys to get back to whatever it was you were doing before I rudely interrupted. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys next time. And so, Thursday Night Football. You guys know where you can find me at its conclusion here on the Louie T Network. Thursday Night Football overtime. It's back. Until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. Until next time, you guys take care. God bless and good night. Louie T.